Welcome back, everyone. My name is Tim Stuart from Visual Decisions. We're here today to talk about why manufacturers are choosing Ignition for industrial automation. With me again, I have Thomas Stecko. Welcome back. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about moving off of Excel and Access because it's just not scalable within the factory. And today we're going to look at one particular example of a solution that we can use to make that happen. So Thomas, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself and Sandalwood?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Tim. Glad to be back. 6 years with Sandalwood Systems Integration Group. I've worked in various projects in digital transformation, smart manufacturing, IoT, and cybersecurity. So quick note on Sandalwood. So Sandalwood is an engineering and ergonomics professional services firm with a goal to help you work smarter and safer. We have offices in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And today we're excited to show you how Ignition is helping manufacturers modernize and scale without breaking their budgets or their production schedules. So I think we should jump in here, Tim.
All right, sounds good. So Thomas, you had some slides that you wanted to share today. Take it over.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I have a couple slides here that I put together just working from various projects, use cases that the team and I have been working on for the past few years. But really, I want to get started with the landscape today. So if we look at the big picture, manufacturers are collecting more and more data than ever. But that data is often stuck in disconnected systems with no common central home. When you have random buckets of data, there is no real good way to analyze your KPIs or your performance parameters. And when the systems can't talk to each other, this leads to production issues, miscommunication, human error, and etc. And you'd be surprised how many small to medium-sized businesses are still using a lot of buckets of specific data. And what I'm talking about the buckets is the real impacts of data silos, right? What do we see when we have data from sensors, from processing systems, from quality assurance backends, right? This leads to real world problems, which we see downtime, quality issues, delayed decision making, and really higher costs for IT work and manual work to find any faults within the production environment. And really, you can't fix what you can't see. And disconnected data makes it tough to see what's really happening on the shop floor. Like I mentioned it in the past, many small to medium-sized businesses are still running manual reports or following fixed state preventive maintenance on their equipment rather than using data to analyze peak system performance, right?
Yep.
And this is kind of a big challenge now is how can we sustain growth with a production environment or with a manufacturing process that is growing, but we're stuck in a position where multiple departments have different types of data and we can't really unify that data, use it in a central host.
Yeah, I think last time that we talked a couple of weeks ago, I gave an example of a customer that just looking at quality alone had something like 56, 57 different systems that they had quality information dispersed out into. And there wasn't any single person in the company that knew about all of those systems, let alone had access to them all. So when they had something like a recall happen and they needed to find out all the quality related information for what happened as that order went through the process, they had no way of actually gathering all of that together.
Yeah, plus with the siloed data, we have to think about who's looking at that data, how long that person has been looking at that specific data, how long have they been in that position for. And when these people retire, if something happens, they change jobs, circumstances change. Where does all that information go, right? You might have a SharePoint online, you might have some sort of a local repository in Microsoft Teams or like Google Sheets, but those processes, the sequences, all the algorithms, the flows are kind of that person. And you just can't scale that with today's world, which kind of brings me to this slide here, new modern flexible SCADA solutions. within the last 10 to 15 years, smart factories have been gaining a lot of traction, and they're only getting more advanced in 2025. They connect machines and systems for real-time data insight. With edge computing, this helps us process data faster in real time, right? And OT and IT convergence helps bring our plant floor data into the business layer. So being able to gather data from our MES, ERP systems, along with the machine data, provides a real solid SCADA foundation for really unified visibility into your processes, right? And if I look at the landscape today, depending on your application, this is just a general view. Um, we can see that we have a general overview of some sort of a manufacturing process, right?
Yep.
We're ingesting data from various machine sensors, production data, and they're all going through an uncommon communication protocol. Sometimes it's common, sometimes it's not. It just depends on the application, which then are fed and stored into the proprietary backend systems, which you can access through various data interfaces. And at the end of the day, it's about breaking data silos and unifying your specific data. Topology like this works, but it can only get you so far. And as your process grow, this topology is not scalable, right? It works,
Hmm.
but maybe for one specific plant, for one
Yeah, I
site.
mean, you end up with sort of the same problem that we had with the manual processes that we just talked about a little bit ago, where you have all of these different silos that you're pushing information into, and
Mhm.
you're not going to have any one person that has access, let alone utilizes effectively from those different data sources and so forth.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Like I said, I've been working in IIoT for 6 years now, and use various platform backends, and still, in 2025, understanding going from this to something like this is looking at the modern automation approach, right?
Yeah.
Um, the modern data flow, again, is unique to the site, the circumstances, the network topology. Really, it kind of flows in this process, right? Where on the left hand side, we have the data. So all of our sensors are feeding data into a SCADA system. And here we're using Ignition as an example. So we process that specific data with Ignition, and here we're using Node-RED, which is acting as a client that publishes and subscribes to data via MQTT, which are then sent to a broker or a messaging server, right?
Mhm.
In the publishing phase, the broker routes all that data to clients that have subscribed to those specific topics. And then we distribute that data in some sort of a big data lake, right? That acts as a central repository, which is collecting all raw processed data that comes in from that broker. And then we consume that data via the SCADA HMI, QMS interface, process interface, administration, some custom dashboards for user training, manuals, etc. Um, pretty easily. And you're not really breaking the bank when you're looking at this type of topology. And you would be surprised how fast a manufacturing process facility can be up and running compared to where we were 10 to 15 years ago.
And from a maintenance perspective, this should be a whole lot easier than all of those different point-to-point interfaces that we saw on the last slide.
Yeah, for sure. You have all that data. You know when, you know what, the timestamp, and you can look at historical data. So if we enable loggings on power, current, temperature, etc., and we have a problem or we have an issue with quality, we can back in that specific data based off of the logging intervals, whether it's a couple milliseconds, whether it's every 5 minutes, to really analyze the data, let the data work for us, paint the big picture, give us an idea of what is actually going on and how do we actually solve that particular problem.
So, can you go through an overview of the Ignition platform itself and tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so for sure. So for ignition, it's a SCADA type of environment that takes MES data, any data from your databases, your sensors, hardware agnostic. So your Allen Bradleys, your Siemens, your Beckhoff, any PLCs or IPCs, over any type of protocol, all into a central hub. So really, how does ignition fit into this type of eco space, right? So ignition, like I said, is a central part of your plant floor data and operations. It connects just to about any system, no matter what brand or protocol. Like I mentioned, it supports SCADA, MES, HMI applications all in one platform. And the installation is a complete breeze. With the addition of Ignition and Docker, now we can spin up Docker containers in minutes for a brand new fresh start on a brand new gateway in literally minutes. And then if you have a project export, you can simply import that project, import your tags, or create a simulator and simulate your data in a matter of minutes. And I know 5, 6 years ago, this would have been challenging. This takes, a good portion of time to create an environment, get all your database connections set up, all your networking, ports, port forwarding, opening up any firewall rules. This is all in the past, right?
Hmm.
And when I look at really what ignition is, like the slide shows, it connects pretty much everything. With Ignition 8.1, they pushed out a perspective module, which means all your central data, real-time data capture is available on mobile and web clients, right? So we can build applications that are meant to be on tablets, on phones, on any type of screen resolution, or you make it dynamic. Ignition has an ability to adjust your browser experience or user experience based off of the pixel width, right? So we can adjust the orientation, the view of the actual dashboard in real time, render it live with your live data on any type of software, Mac. It doesn't matter since it's all web based. The beauty of having Ignition is a built-in tag browser, really, where you can really see your real-time data coming down from your PLC or your OPC UA connection, where you can directly see your raw specific data. And with Ignition, you can enable the tag historian and log all any specific SPC variables. If a value gets ahead of a specific range, you can create alerts, all with just a couple clicks. And really, you can scale it up where you start small and grow as your process grows. And at the end of the day, we're making decisions on our data. And really, we can act so fast, we can be ahead of that game. If we know we're having an issue with production or we're running low on stock on some consumables, or we're having issues with the conveyor and we can't push the equipment, you see in real time, which makes you make very quick decisions, which is huge, and that just saves a bunch of downtime, employee morale. When I can actually see my work, my labor, my production counts live on a specific screen, if we're competing towards a goal, pizza party, or something like that, we have the ability to showcase the performance in specific real time.
So just to kind of clarify, the solution has capabilities out of the box. It has all the connectors and so forth to get all these things, and then lets you create basically your custom workflows within that solution so that you can focus on the things that matter to you, and you can support the processes that you want to have in place as opposed to the processes that are kind of built into a lot of the business software. So it's not like implementing an SAP. It's much more uh, custom than something like that would be.
Yeah, and we start small. We pilot on one line, on one product, on one asset, maybe, right? And then we exponentially grow using repeaters, using templates. We can build new lines, new dashboards, add new lines with global scripting. within a matter of minutes. So once we pilot a project and we like what we see, this is where we can push the envelope a little bit further to phase B, phase C, and phase D of the specific project.
Okay. Um, let's see. Talk to me a little bit more about the implementation and what that looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So a quick look at a basic topology, right? Based on your application. Every project is going to be different. Every business need is going to be different. But really, we have PLCs that are feeding data into a ignition server, right? We have a server here, we have a server here, but then it gets a little bit tricky because then we got to look, are we looking at a basic approach, which is just making a connection with a relational database, which you can see here, and we ingest that specific data via HMI, via the web-based client, via our phone, and etc. Or we push to a more hybrid approach where we can see here, we might have some devices that are remote or maybe must run on a on-prem type of network where we can utilize Ignition Edge. Or we would have a big data lake where we want to store all of our data, raw data, all specific data from a bunch of lines in a central system. We have this approach as well. Or let's say you're getting data from a API from your ERP system, right? How do we communicate with all those different channels? Really dictates what the project is going to look like. But really, why manufacturers are really choosing Ignition, I think there's four big reasons. Flexibility. You build what you want with reusable components, templates, and we can easily deploy these Ignition instances via Docker. Extremely quick, easy backup and restore processes. Second one would be web deployment. Rich online dashboards from any browser via Ignition's Perspective module. We can push updates anytime, anywhere, with the flick of a button. Works on Windows, Linux, iOS, you name it. It pretty much connects to anything. And it's cost effective. One license gives you unlimited tags, clients, device connections, and projects, which is huge. And at the end of the day, this gives you the freedom, it gives you the speed without the typical enterprise price tag. And Tim, I know we've worked a lot in the past with various platforms, right? And depending on the application, the tag size, the user count, how many developers need access to the development environment, this all adds up into your subscription model or the cost of your license. And with Ignition, it makes it pretty user friendly with what they offer.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Ignition is more of a one-time purchase model as opposed to a subscription model, correct?
Yeah, and they're constantly giving you product updates on different modules. You have access to unique features that are well ahead of their time. And it's funny, we were working on projects, Tim, back in 2020, 2021, when I thought it was so advanced when we were building custom widgets and custom
Yeah.
dashboards, custom buttons. And now you see these in the Perspective libraries and the Vision libraries with Ignition right out of the box, right? Which leaves a lot of the guesswork out of it, and it really helps you push your development cycle.
Yeah. So from a timing point of view, then that really helps with we talked about it not being as much out of the box of a SAP type solution as it is custom to support your workflows and so forth. But they also have a lot of those widgets right out of the box so that you don't have to write everything from scratch. It's more assembling different parts, right?
Yeah, you just connect the dots, cross the T's, dot the I's, and you have a connection. You can start logging your data, do whatever you want with your data, do your reports, custom products, which leads me to the next slide here. getting started with ignition. You have a couple options which ignition version you want to choose. There's three currently. So you have the
Mm,
Ignition Edge, which is a lightweight on-prem solution for remote sites, limited to one client and one project. We have Ignition Cloud Edition, which is designed for your cloud infrastructure, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Now we got the one that I use personally. It's the Ignition Maker Edition, which is free to use. Any DIY home automation project, DIY setup, or educational projects are typically utilizing Ignition Maker Edition. And the beauty of Ignition is they thought of all these different ways to start having conversations or have questions, have issues with the product, or might not be understanding a task. There is the Sport Forum, which is pretty sweet. So the inductive automation forum, we can browse different questions, post questions in the community forum, and even have the technical support reps from inductive automation answer those questions, which is pretty awesome.
nice. Yeah.
Um, let's say you're on the exchange and you're looking for a button, or you're looking for a weather app, a weather widget, or you're looking for something specific. Well, Ignition has an exchange where you can go ahead and see what other people have built. Maybe you're looking for a like a flow chart, some sort of a Gantt chart, some sort of a cool silo image. We have those capabilities of checking that out as well. And another cool thing is if you Google Ignition perspective demo, you can see here, they have a live demo that's running off of a couple simulators that you can kind of see your data changing in real time and see the capabilities, the look and feel, the responsiveness that you can get from Ignition before you start it. Yeah,
Nice. Excellent.
that's pretty cool. Yeah. So some of the Ignition implementation considerations, right?
Yep.
There's always a few tips when implementing Ignition, right? You need to really understand and know the process that you want to optimize, digitize, etc. Right? And when you're looking at the licenses or the modules, we need to know which modules you need to buy. Do we need the SQL Bridge module? Do we need these MQTT modules? What specific modules are going to suit your application now, and what modules might you need in the future? Right? Does the hardware match your system size? Ignition's gateway monitors your RAM, how much performance is being utilized by threads, by scripts, and etc. And an undersized system leads to poor performance. So we're always looking at server, the rack,
Mhm.
network speed, what we can do, how much RAM is available, how much cores are being utilized on that server. The biggest thing I found is what's always worked best is designing the UI flows with the operators, with the people that are on the floor, pressing buttons, logging, creating tickets, calling for support. What do you want this button to do? Do you want a pop-up? How big do you want the pop-up to be? Do you want the pop-up in the middle? Do you want to go back to the previous page if you hit this X button? Getting the design and the wants from the people on the floor, the main decision makers, makes the process so much smoother, right? And the ability to set up your logging in the Active Directory, any backups, any type of security.
Yep.
And if we plan it right, we avoid surprises later. 100%.
Yeah. And one of the things that you mentioned there that really connects with me is getting the end users involved with that process.
Mhm.
One of the things that companies always struggle with is, getting adoption of these different solutions, after they've put them in. And I think that your process of having those people be involved with the design of it in the first place is much more likely to lead to them buying into it and actually using it once it's completed.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I see it
Um,
time and time again when, we're really working with the team on the floor. And you'd be surprised at the joy that they get when process is happening just how they envision it. Right? It's awesome.
One thing that you've talked about that I will comment on a little bit is there is the Ignition University, and companies can take ownership of this and do this on their own and so forth. But what the process that you just stepped through and so forth, I think there's a tremendous benefit for companies that are getting started with this, and even the ones that are downstream a bit, to have someone like yourself that's been there and done that to come in and help them out with that process. Certainly to get started and making sure that your initial implementation is successful.
Yeah, for sure. We're always in the explanatory phase for like a couple days, sitting with the key decision makers, right? Getting an idea, like a vision of where we see this project a year from now. Are we going to scale? Are we going to grow? Are we going to train? Are we going to try to use data to make decisions based off of um, SPC metrics? So set an alert if the gearbox oil gets to this temperature or something like that, right? But really give the user, give the person that's owning that data, show them the power of ignition, what it can do for you. No more calculators, no more using Excel formulas, right? Let ignition transform your data for
No more paper tick sheets, anything like
you.
that as well.
Tick sheets have their purpose.
They do, but they also lead to a lot of rework and waste. So, but they're a great way to get started. Let's see. Can you walk through this case study of an actual success story that you've had with a customer?
Yeah, for sure. So this is posted on our blog, on our resource site. I was not part of this specific project. I'll do my best to summarize it. The blog kind of goes into detail about the key inner workings of it. But here, pretty much kind of similar to our beginning slide. So the customer came to us with siloed data, siloed systems, manual data collection, and really an aging network, right? The equipment was failing them, and the change was required to gain insights for meaningful data, right? So with Ignition, we unified their SCADA and HMI systems, adding rich dashboards and improving alerting and reporting functionality. And like I mentioned before, we work with the production floor on what data made sense, how they wanted it positioned, what they wanted the buttons to do, and etc. And really, the results were pretty crazy. We're 50% faster deployment of new stations. These are portable testing stations, not too big. And when the manufacturing process started to explode, it started getting quite busy. We needed a way to mimic this on different stations, right? And by having parameters for station num or station number, serial number, we were able to build all these UIs in just a matter of days, right? And really 30% less downtime on troubleshooting faults, right? We gave him the ability to view his historical data, live data that they were tracking for daily production. And based off of your data, you can set rules, you can set alerts. Hey, if your RPM goes above this range, or if the temperature of this component gets to within this specific range, shut the equipment down, right? And we were able to do this with just a matter of weeks, right? And 25% more testing. They're able to push 25% more product through their testing equipment, and that's real ROI right there. Right? We had another one as well that we worked on. This one was kind of similar to the spreadsheets and the similar webinar we did on Microsoft Access. So here we had a customer that was utilizing Ignition 7.9. And with the Ignition 7.9, they were utilizing the Vision console that was made for the on-prem project. So with the Vision module is typically installed on a Windows or a Linux or a iOS device with no real way to push the content to the web unless you're using a web dev module. But there is no real way to view your data on a mobile phone with the Vision, but that's what the customer had. So here they lacked visibility, and we couldn't scale to meet demand or planning for the specific future. So we help them to add an RFID ignition solution, creating rich real-time dashboards for immediate data ingestion. We did create a lab that we were able to mimic the actions within a development environment. And once we had the project built within our lab, we were able to import that into their production environment. This gave them real-time data insights, which really eliminated a bunch of errors and laid the foundation for the smart factory expansion. I tried getting some pictures of this project, but it's built in Ignition version 7.9, which I don't have access to that legacy platform anymore. But again, this is just another success where this was 2 or 3 years ago, and now we're on the 5th iteration of this one project here.
Excellent.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to show you is this pretty cool. This is a video that I took. This is a project that I did work on that we're showing a mobile application and a desktop application. So here we're looking at 1920 by 1080 with the ability to go portrait or landscape. And then here we have an iPhone 15 Pro as an example. And I'll just play it back here for you. And we can see here that the responsiveness of this type of application where utilizing the Ignition's perspective module, we can see that how the UI adapts based on a tablet or a phone or a desktop. Pretty much so with Ignition, this is done utilizing a breakpoint container. So with that container, let's say we have the pixel width less than 600 pixels, 480 pixels. Anything smaller than that pixel value will show us on the specific device. And utilizing embedded views, we can put view A mobile in a pixel density of 600 pixels. And anything greater than 680, we can push that onto a tablet or something with a larger form. Extremely responsive. This is all done with templates. So let's say if you have 1,000 machines, you build one template with one parameter for machine ID, machine number. Then you have all your backend work and your UDTs go through a script written in Python, and then you have the ability to adapt that to your process, right? And there is no hard coding. If you have 1,000 machines, you don't have X equals 1,000, right? We have the system count and learn, right? Okay, now there's a new machine involved, right? So this is a project that probably took three months or so. They were using Ignition version 7.9. So we adapted that from 7.9, which was a legacy system, up to Ignition 8.1.3.
Nice.
Yeah, and this is pretty awesome actually. This is one of the 4th or 5th projects that I worked on with Ignition up here in Ontario, Canada, and just to see the reaction of the forklift drivers seeing this on their phone or on the tablet that was mounted inside, just gave them so much confidence and so much more efficiency that the screen was updating not after 500 seconds, but immediately, right? So we fixed a lot of bottlenecks, and we just made this process so much smoother.
Excellent. We're a little bit past our 30-minute target here. Do you have any kind of final thoughts?
I would say take the dive into Ignition. It's a free license, so the Maker Edition gives you a 2-hour license. Look at the demos that are available with inductive automation. Jump onto the Ignition University. With Ignition University, you can get your core certification, you can get your gold certification, and as Sandalwood is a Ignition Gold certified integrator, you can work with us, and we can help your dream in actual reality.
Sounds good. Thank you for joining me today and giving us this quick overview of Ignition. And look forward to talking again.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Tim. All the best. I'm looking forward to doing another webinar with you. Take care.
All right. Bye.